He grabbed her wrist. Snap! A 15-year-old black girl dropped to the grass. No warning. No fight. Just silence. Her arm bent the wrong way. Her eyes? Still locked on him. The cop? White. 40s. Said it was standard procedure. Kids screamed. Moms filmed. But she didn't scream. She stared. And he had no idea. The girl he just broke was the daughter of a world champion MMA fighter who just landed and isn't here to talk. What state are you in? Could this happen to your child? Let's begin. It was a blazing June afternoon in Crestfall, Illinois. Sycamore Springs Park was packed. Kids ran circles around the fountain. The smell of grilled meat mixed with music floating from scattered Bluetooth speakers. Amira Joyner, 15, sat on the grass with a few friends. Her backpack leaned against her legs, curls spilling down her shoulders. She laughed brightly as the group chatted about Crestfall West High's upcoming fall dance. A normal day, a peaceful one, until a shadow blocked the sunlight above her. Break this up. Leave. Now. The voice was cold, unhesitant. Officer Shane Kershaw, white, 40, tall and heavy-set, his face flushed under the sun. The group froze. A few kids stood up at once. But not Amira. She just looked up at him. Calm. Not defiant. Not disrespectful. Just still. What's in the backpack? Kershaw asked, his tone sliding like a knife. Just books, sir. School books. Amira's voice was soft, but steady. Give it here. When Amira gently pulled the backpack closer to her side, a reflex of protection kicked in. But to Kershaw, that was all he needed. He grabbed her arm, twisted. A brutal snap echoed, dry, sharp, like a branch breaking in a quiet forest. Amira didn't scream. She collapsed onto the grass, her left arm bent at an unnatural angle. Her breath came in fast bursts, eyes wide. No tears, no pleading. The entire park went still. A woman shouted from across the lawn, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" An elderly man rose shakily from his bench, gripping his cane. A little kid stopped eating ice cream, eyes locked on Amira. And then the phones came out. Cameras turned on. Officer Kershaw stood there, legs apart, still gripping Amira's backpack. No remorse, no explanation, just a glare, like he'd just taught someone a lesson. Amira lay silent, the smile gone from her face, replaced by something stronger. Absolute power in silence. A silence no one could look away from. The first camera captured it, then the second, the third. From every corner of the park. No screams from Amira, but thousands of eyes saw everything. And in that moment, no one saw her as just a child. She became something else. A symbol. A question hanging in the heat. Why her? The grass beneath her felt cool, but pain surged through every muscle. Her left arm was pulled inward, dangling off to the side like a puppet with broken strings. The fire in her joints seared, but she still didn't make a sound. No scream, no whimper, just that look, locked deep, dark, and direct into Officer Shane Kershaw's eyes, as if branding a message into his mind. I'm not afraid of you, and you will not break me. A young woman stepped closer, phone still recording. Are you okay, sweetie? What's her name? Do you need? Amira didn't respond. Her eyelids twitched, breath uneven, but her eyes stayed fixed, not on the camera. On the man who shattered her world with one vicious twist. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was an accusation, sharper than any scream. It made people uneasy. The park changed. No longer a place of laughter, but the scene of deliberate violence. In broad daylight, before an entire community. An old man near the koi pond stammered, No, it wasn't her fault. I saw. She didn't do anything wrong." The crowd wasn't just watching anymore. They started to feel something deeper. Guilt. Some avoided Amira's gaze. Others bit their lips like they'd let it happen. Officer Kershaw stepped back. Sweat rolled down his temple. He glanced around, phone still recording. No one yelled. No one rushed in. But no one left. A storm of outrage was brewing. Silent, steady, far more dangerous than any outcry. A teen girl with long braids, Talia Monroe, had been there from the beginning. She quickly knelt beside Amira, her voice shaking. "Don't move, okay? Just stay still. Just look at me." Just breathe slowly. Amira didn't answer. Her gaze finally left the officer, drifting upward. Wisps of cloud passed the treetops. A sparrow darted by. She thought of her father, of the times he taught her how to take a fall in martial arts practice. But this time there were no pads, no coach. Only real pain, and a humiliation with no name. A tear slipped from the corner of her left eye. Not from the pain, but from the injustice. A middle-aged man muttered under his breath, "God, if this can still happen, is there even justice left in this country?" Someone called 911. Someone else went live. Within 90 seconds, the name Amira Joyner would become a hashtag. The image of a 15-year-old black girl, lying still with a broken arm and defiant eyes, would ignite a firestorm on social media. But right then, at Sycamore Springs Park, she was still just a girl. No cries for help. No complaints. Only silence. Deafening, terrifying silence. The entire park felt frozen. Even the summer cicadas humming in the sycamore trees couldn't drown out the heavy quiet that had descended. Some kids didn't understand what was happening, but the adults did, and they were starting to get angry. A tall, wiry old man stepped forward, leaning on a cane. His sun-darkened face tightened into lines of fury. His name was Harold Clemens, a Marine veteran. Nearly 70 years of living by one principle. Standing still in the face of injustice is complicity. He pointed at Officer Shane Kershaw, voice rasping like sandpaper. "Are you out of your damn mind? She's a child. She was sitting there. She didn't do a thing wrong." Kershaw turned, face stone cold. "Step back, sir. I'm doing my job." "What job exactly?" A woman cut in, mother of the 3 kids, standing by the ice cream cart. She wore a red hoodie, hands trembling with rage. "I got the whole thing on camera. So did everyone else. You're not getting away with this." Phone shot up like a forest of lenses. At least 6 people were live streaming. A young man by the water fountain whistled loudly. "Yo, whoever's watching this. Crestfall's got drama. Cop just broke a black girl's arm. Right here at Sycamore Springs. This is real, no acting." From another angle, a teen in a backward cap and rolled-up flannel pointed his camera straight at the officer. "What's your name? Who do you think you are, doing that to a minor? Say it, on record." Kershaw was starting to feel the heat. Sweat pooled at his collar. The crowd was no longer just witnesses. They were becoming voices. And each voice pierced the icy silence around him like a blade. A man walking a pit bull shouted out, "We need to report this to internal affairs. That's abuse of power." That girl wasn't resisting. Not one bit. Talia Monroe was still beside Amira. One knee on the ground, shading her friend's face with her hand. "Don't move, Amira," she whispered. Everyone saw. Everyone's watching now. Nearby, an 8-year-old boy asked his mother, "Mom, why did that man hurt her?" The question made the woman freeze. She pulled her son close, her eyes fixed on Officer Kershaw. There was no more fear in her face, only contempt. No one rushed in with fists, but no one looked away either. The outrage wasn't explosive. It was slow burning, like steam building under a sealed lid. The crowd became one body, not chaotic but aware. People felt it now. They couldn't stand still, couldn't pretend they didn't see. And Officer Shane Kershaw, caught in the late afternoon sun with a wave of online fury just seconds from breaking, realized he was no longer in control. Amira was still lying there, arm broken, eyes closed. But it was this girl, this silent girl, who had awakened an entire community. And now, the park was silent no longer. The wail of an ambulance echoed through Sycamore Springs Park. Her arm was splinted with a wooden board and nylon strap. Talia held Amira's good hand until the paramedics rolled her onto the gurney. The crowd parted like water. Everyone turned back. Everyone burned the moment into memory. Officer Shane Kershaw stepped fully outside the circle now. His eyes, no longer cold, just empty. And just then, a black suburban SUV pulled up to the park's front gate. No one noticed, because the real story had started over 5,000 miles away. Tokyo, Japan. Inside a closed training hall, fluorescent lights bounced off polished wood floors. Colton Joyner was grappling with young fighters. Sweat rolled down his spine, fists wrapped in white tape, his eyes razor sharp. Colton, 47, three-time middleweight MMA world champion. Now, an international coach. Every joint lock he taught was a lesson. Every takedown, a life philosophy. He was mid-spin, dodging a punch, when the phone rang. His assistant rushed over. "It's urgent." "From the U.S. It's about your daughter." Colton froze. His expression shifted. He took the phone, watched the first video. A girl lying on the grass. Arm broken, eyes dry but fierce. He didn't need more than 3 seconds. He knew exactly who it was. Amira. He didn't say a word, didn't ask a single question. Colton unwrapped his hands, changed shirts, and walked straight out. His assistant hurried after him, barely getting a word out before Colton said just one sentence. "Book the next flight. I'm going home." Just a few hours later, the plane took off from Narita Airport, bound for Chicago. Colton sat in silence in business class, clutching a small notebook, something he always carried with him. Inside it were words Amira had written when she was 8. "I want to learn martial arts to protect people. Just like you, Dad." In the main cabin, a passenger recognized him, a veteran who had followed Colton's MMA career back in its prime. He leaned in cautiously. "You're him, right? Colton Joyner?" Colton gave a faint nod. The man was quiet for a moment, then added, "I saw the video. The whole country's on fire. They don't need a champion right now. They need a father." Colton turned to him, nodded once more, still silent. But this time, there was something burning behind his eyes. As soon as the plane landed, Colton didn't go to a hotel. He went straight to Ridgeview Medical Center, where Amira was being treated. And on the way there, a new message came in. Another clip leaked. It's not just a broken arm. Apparently, security footage caught audio. Officer Kershaw's threats before the assault. Colton stared out the car window. His face, once calm, began to harden into steel. This wasn't just violence. This was a targeted attack. And if that was true, he hadn't come home just to hold his daughter. He had come to confront the system that allowed it to happen. And this time, he wouldn't be stepping into a ring. He'd be standing in the middle of the community, in the middle of justice, in the center of voices that had been ignored for far too long. He knew this return was a fight without gloves. The hallway on the 3rd floor of Ridgeview Medical Center felt like it was holding its breath. Silent. Still. Waiting. Colton Joyner stepped out of the elevator. His heavy leather boots echoed steadily against the tile. The fluorescent lights cast a dull sheen on his black jacket. In his hand, he still held that small notebook Amira had written in at age 8. A young nurse spotted him from down the hall, froze for a beat, then gave a quiet nod, as if she knew this man didn't need directions. She simply pointed down the corridor. Room 312. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, Amira lay in a hospital bed, her left arm stabilized with aluminum splints and white straps. Her eyes were closed, resting, until she heard the door creak. Her eyelids fluttered open slowly. She didn't sit up. She didn't say anything. Colton walked in. Alone. No cameras. No noise. Just a father. And his daughter. He stopped at the edge of her bed. She looked at him. Their eyes met in the cold, white room. No tears. No sobs. Just something deeper than words. A kind of feeling you can't teach in martial arts. You can't write it down. You can only feel it. "Hey, champ," Colton whispered. His voice was low and rough, like it had been worn thin by grief. Amira smiled barely. One side of her mouth lifted, then dropped again in pain. "I'm okay," she said, almost instinctively. But Colton knew. That wasn't for the doctors. It was a signal. A white flag planted in wreckage, telling him, "I'm still standing." Colton sat down beside her. He didn't ask about her arm. Didn't ask what happened. He already knew. He just placed his calloused hand on her right wrist. His large fingers nearly wrapped around her entire forearm. Amira squeezed back just slightly. No one smiled, but both felt something warm pulse through their chests. For one quiet moment, they weren't in a hospital. They were back in the old dojo, when he taught her how to stay grounded when someone tried to knock her down. Colton bowed his head, let his forehead rest lightly against hers. "You're not alone," he murmured. "I'm here." Amira gave a faint nod. Her eyes sparkled. Outside the room, A nurse knocked gently to remind them about the next X-ray session. Colton stood, still keeping one hand on Amira's shoulder. A silent promise. "This isn't over," he said. "This time, not whispering. We're going to get it all back. Not just justice for you, but for every person who stayed quiet out of fear." Amira closed her eyes, but her lips still moved. Only Colton heard the last sentence. "Start it, Dad." The next morning, before sunrise could paint the sky over Crestfall, Amira Joyner's story had already flooded the internet. A 47-second clip, filmed by a teen near the ice cream truck, had reached over 3 million views overnight. In the video, a young black girl lay still in the harsh sunlight, her arm broken, her eyes wide, staring straight at the officer. She said nothing, but the message hit harder than any speech. "I exist. I do not bow." The hashtag JusticeForAmira topped national trends on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Screenshots from live streams and phone footage were turned into hundreds of graphic versions. From black and white portraits full of emotion to bold street art style illustrations and even political style posters. In Atlanta, a street artist spray painted Amira's image on an old brick wall with a caption, "Strength doesn't live in volume. It lives in the eyes." Local news stations picked up the story by early morning. By noon, Crestfall was no longer a quiet name buried in rural Illinois. It had become a national flashpoint. On Channel 5 of the Southeast Ledger, the lead anchor opened the noon broadcast with, "Yesterday, in a small park on the outskirts of Crestfall, a 15-year-old girl had her arm broken by police because she wouldn't move from a bench. But that girl didn't cry. And now, she has the whole country listening." Activists began sharing the clip. Prominent black celebrities, NBA players, Hollywood actors, musicians posted Amira's photo to their stories, with the caption, "No child should ever go through this." During a live morning talk show, a black host sat upright and looked into the camera. "I'm the mother of 2 black daughters. I saw my own child in Amira Joyner's eyes, and I refuse to accept that as normal." Colton Joyner's phone never stopped ringing. Messages, calls, emails, alerts. It all came down like a flood. His former agent suggested a press conference. A network producer offered an exclusive interview. Colton replied to no one. He sat in a hospital waiting room, watching every clip again, not because he didn't understand, but because he was studying how the world was reacting to truth. In a room next door, Talia Monroe, the girl with the braids, was being interviewed by a local journalist. She recounted every moment, every breath, every heartbeat. Her voice trembled, but her gaze was stone. They thought she'd cry, but she didn't. And that silence? That's what made people stop turning away. On the hallway TV, footage played of hundreds gathering at Sycamore Springs Park. Candles, signs, messages. There were children. There were elders. They didn't know Amira, but now they recognized a part of themselves in her story. And so, a 15-year-old girl with a broken arm and defiant eyes became a small flame in America's long night. The press conference was held Saturday morning at the Crestfall Civic Pavilion. The sky was clear, but the air was tight like a pulled string. Outside, hundreds gathered, wearing T-shirts with the words, "We are Amira." They came from everywhere, Chicago, St. Louis, even Atlanta. Every race, every age, all with one purpose, to hear the truth. Inside the hall, the panel table was set. Behind it, a simple backdrop with the logo of Northwood Legal Alliance and the words, "Justice, not just rage." Colton Joyner stepped onto the stage. No suit, just a rolled-up white shirt and worn jeans. Not a fighter's uniform, a father's. Exactly what he wanted people to see first. He gave a slight bow and opened simply, "My name is Colton Joyner. I'm not here to restore my honor. I'm here for my daughter, Amira." Cameras panned slowly. Pens scribbled, but he didn't look at anyone. He looked straight into the center camera. "I've stood in rings with men 20 pounds heavier than me. I've fought in front of stadiums packed with thousands. But I've never shaken like I did. Watching the video of my daughter's arm being snapped and her staying silent." He paused, let the emotion thread through his voice. That wasn't fear. That was endurance. and no child in America should ever have to endure like that. Applause burst out, then quickly hushed as the event continued. Just as Colton took a half step back and the host moved to introduce attorney Marcy Donnellan, a side door in the hall creaked open. A man in a police uniform entered, face tense. Deputy Chief Wallace, acting commander of Crestfall PD. He wasn't invited. He wasn't on the program. The room froze. Some shouted. Some backed away. But Colton didn't move. He stared straight at Wallace as the man took a mic and asked to speak. "Before you proceed," Wallace said, voice urgent but steady, "I'd like to address all media present today. Officer Shane Kershaw has been officially suspended. An independent investigation has been launched by the Illinois State Inspector General. The audio footage has been verified as authentic. And on behalf of our department, I want to say, we were wrong." A breathless silence drained the room. Then, thunderous applause. But Colton simply lowered his head. Not in celebration, not in victory, because he knew this was only the first step. Once the crowd settled, Amira appeared. Her left arm was still in a sling, but she wore a navy blue hoodie, and her braids were neatly tied back. She didn't walk fast, but every step was steady. Standing at the mic, Amira looked out over the crowd in front of her. She took a breath. "I'm not a victim," she began, her voice clear and steady. "I'm evidence that this doesn't just happen once, and it doesn't just happen to me." Her gaze swept across the silent, attentive faces. "If my silence woke someone up, then today I choose to speak, so no one else has to lie on the grass and feel alone." And with those words, the entire room stood, not out of pity, but out of respect. Amira didn't step back. She reached for her father's hand, the same hand that had taught her how to stand tall. And in that moment, she was no longer just a 15-year-old girl. She was a spark of justice. And America was watching. 3 days after the press conference, Crestfall was no longer peaceful. Colton Joyner's house in Maple Grove had red spray paint scrawled across the garage. "Fake heroes. Watch yourselves." Attorney Marcy Donnellan's mailbox was ripped open. Inside, an unsigned envelope. Photos of her and Amira, and a typed message in bold. "You're playing with fire." Online, the hashtag JusticeForAmira posts were hit with waves of toxic comments. From anonymous accounts using racial slurs, threats of violence, even calling Amira a leftist media child actress. Colton understood. The bigger the movement, the harder the pushback. He had once fought inside cages, looked into the eyes of his opponents to predict the next strike. But now, the attackers had no faces. They hid in shadows. And that was the most dangerous kind of fight. A strategy meeting was held in Colton's living room. Present, Marcy, activist Jace Merriman, braided-haired Talia Monroe, and a representative from the Northcrest community. They sat around a round table. A city map and community event calendar spread out between them. Jace spoke first. "They're trying to scare us, provoke an emotional response so they can strike back harder. But they forgot one thing. We came with a plan." Marcy slid a file folder toward Colton. "I just filed for extended legal protections under Section 18. We're forcing the police department to release all internal records on Kershaw. Every misconduct case in the last 5 years." Colton nodded, but his eyes stayed on the phone screen beside him. A new message flashed. "You better teach your girl to shut up, or you'll be picking up her pieces." He calmly took a screenshot and sent it straight to Marcy. "We'll handle them one by one," she said firmly. "No rage, just law." Talia chimed in. "We also need a community strategy, not just online, on the ground. Town halls, school talks, civic rights workshops. People need to see this isn't just a wave. It's a foundation." Colton turned to Talia and smiled softly. "This young lady is the fighter of the next generation." Outside the window, 2 strangers stood near a pickup truck, peering in, then left. Jace noted the license plate immediately. Things weren't simple anymore, but no one in the room was backing down. That night, Colton sat by the second-floor window, watching the empty street. Under the street lamp, he saw a few locals pasting posters on utility poles. "Justice doesn't back down." They didn't know him, but they stood with him. In Colton's hand was Amira's smaller hand. She had just gotten a brace removed. Her arm still hurt, but her eyes were stronger than ever. And Colton knew the faceless threats out there were nothing compared to the power in a 15-year-old girl who refused to bow. 3 weeks after the incident, buried under legal briefs, video analysis, and national interviews, there was still one missing piece. The first-hand account from someone who saw everything but had never spoken. And then a name appeared on the Northwood Legal Alliance's voluntary testimony list. Nadine Greer, 38, elementary school teacher, single mom of 2. On the day of the incident at Sycamore Springs Park, Nadine had been standing just behind the ice cream truck, only about 10 feet from where Amira sat. She witnessed everything, from the officer's baseless order to the moment Amira's tiny arm was twisted behind her back without warning. But back then, she said nothing. I was scared, Nadine admitted in her meeting with Marcy Donnellan. I had my 2 little kids with me. I was afraid that if I stepped forward, they'd see their mother dragged away like a criminal. Her voice cracked, but her eyes were clear. No more hesitation. I kept thinking someone else would speak up, someone with a bigger voice. But then I saw Amira. I saw her eyes on the TV, and I knew if I stayed silent now, I'd be betraying myself, betraying my children. In her official statement, Nadine confirmed she heard Officer Shane Kershaw say, "I don't care how old you are. You disobey. You take the hit." That line, under Illinois state law, was a major indicator of unlawful use of force and physical intimidation against a minor. Her testimony became the final piece in the legal puzzle Marcy and her team had been building for nearly a month. From overlapping camera angles, leaked internal reports, to forensic audio analysis. Now, they had an anchor, a direct eyewitness, completely independent, with no ties to Amira's family. In an interview with Channel 5, when asked why she came forward now, Nadine answered with one sentence. "Silence, even out of fear, is a form of permission. And I won't raise my children in a world where their mother just watched and did nothing." Her words went viral almost as widely as Amira's original speech. People started sharing her story with a new hashtag. #SpeakForWhatYouSaw. Colton Joyner called Nadine the bravest woman I never met before that day. And Amira, hearing about her statement over breakfast with her dad, simply nodded, still staring into her glass of milk. I don't blame her. I think she chose the right time, the right reason, and the right person. Because in the storm of injustice, truth doesn't always come from the ones holding a microphone. Sometimes it comes from the last person who decides not to look away. 1 month after Nadine Greer stepped into the light, Crestfall had changed. Amira Joyner's story no longer belonged to press conferences or evening broadcasts. It had grown beyond her name, beyond the Joyner family. It had spread into every alleyway, every classroom, every church and gas station across Illinois and far beyond. At Civic Plaza, once home to the Spring Fair, now stood a stage for the Youth Justice Forum, a community series hosted by Northwood Legal Alliance and local civil groups. Colton stood in the crowd, no longer the main speaker. He set up chairs, adjusted microphones, brewed coffee for volunteers. His role hadn't diminished. It had transformed into a quiet backbone. Amira, though, was different. She showed up in schools, talking about civil rights, about courage and fear, not as a teacher, but as a storyteller. And her voice, calm, raw, made people fall silent like nothing else could. At a Crestfall West High School event, Amira told her peers, "I don't want anyone to become famous for getting hurt, but if it helps someone else avoid that hurt, then I'm okay with it." That quote got printed on T-shirts, became the headline of awareness campaigns, and eventually the name of a legislative proposal, the Amira Joyner Youth Civil Rights Protection Act, a bill under review in the Illinois State Congress to strengthen restrictions on use of force against minors during police interactions. At a Saturday town hall, a 10-year-old boy stepped onto the stage holding a folded sheet of paper. He spoke clearly. "I don't know what I'll be when I grow up, but I know if I ever see something wrong, I won't stay quiet." Hundreds clapped. Some cried. Colton, standing at the back, just nodded. It was a lesson he could never teach inside an MMA cage. In 47 years, he'd won many fights, earned titles, but no strike he'd ever thrown carried the force of one glance, his daughter's glance. That day, in the park, no shouting, no striking back, just stillness, and the courage to stare injustice down. Amira Joyner is no longer just a name, no longer a black teenage victim in a nightly broadcast. She's a spark, an into silence, and a beginning for a new generation, the kind that doesn't need to scream to demand justice. They just need to stop looking away, because justice doesn't belong to one system. It doesn't wear one color. It belongs to those who dare to begin, even with just one story.